How do you feel? I feel like I should be happy. I should be at peace. But I'm empty. These are words said by Adrian Monk from the television show Monk. It's quickly become one of my favorite shows of all time. You know, and on the surface, it looks like a show that's just a comedy, that's just really funny because you've got this guy who has OCD and every phobia imaginable. He's afraid of everything, afraid of crowds, afraid of germs, afraid of milk, because that makes sense. But he has all these phobias, so it's just funny to watch this brilliant detective get himself in all these awkward situations. But it's a show that's about way more than that. It's about a man's journey to healing, a man who is grieving the loss of his wife, and his journey to being healed of that grief. This conversation that he has with his counselor says, how do you feel? Because Adrian has finally solved the case. Monk has finally solved the case of how his wife was murdered. In all these years, case after case he solved, it was easy, but the one he couldn't solve was his wife's murder. And finally, he solves it. And he says, I thought I'd be happy. I thought I'd be at peace. But I'm just empty. To live in this world is to risk having a broken heart. C.S. Lewis puts it another way. He says, to love is to risk a broken heart. I think the question that is coming up for me in that is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to love knowing that your heart could be broken? And I wonder, too, with Adrian Monk, you know, I know he's a fictional character, but I just wonder if he was a real person, if we could ask him, was it worth it to love your wife that much? I kind of think if you would have asked him in the midst of his grief, he might have said no. Because he was crippled by his insufferable grief. The problem that he also had was he wasn't able to let people love him because his heart became hard and numb. And the beautiful thing about the show is his friends truly do love and adore him, but he can't see it because he's so hardened by this grief. Jesus says in our gospel, he's troubled now. He's troubled now. And he's troubled because he knows he's about to endure this great suffering. He knows he's about to freely give his life and to suffer for us. That's why he's troubled. He knows what's about to come. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering. He will lose his life. He's also troubled because a few moments ago, we didn't hear it this weekend, but just before this moment, Jesus wept because his friend Lazarus had died. His heart was broken. I've been obsessed with this verse this week. Jesus had a troubled heart. Because I've just been thinking a lot about all of you. People that I know who have troubled hearts. Some of us here have been hurt by someone in our life, a friend, a family member, maybe someone we look up to by their words, and it's hurt us in our hearts. Some of us here have a broken heart because a friend or a family member has been diagnosed recently with a debilitating disease. I know there's many here who are grieving because they lost someone they love, whether it's a spouse or a child. Many of you have experienced grief, and a lot of it. And I think all of us, in some way or another, have a troubled heart where we ask the question, why? Why me? Why is this thing? Why did I lose my job at this time? Or whatever it is. All of us share in Jesus' experience of having a troubled, difficult experience, emotional thing going on where we have a troubled heart. So there's the question, is it worth it? Is it? Scarecrow and the Tin Man were trying to answer this question. Now, someone corrected me at the last Mass. I have no idea. I don't read things. I watch things, okay? Somewhere this conversation happened, whether it's in the story, the book itself, or whatever, how it was written, or the movie, but somewhere, Scarecrow and Tin Man have this argument, this debate. Which is better to have? Is it better to have a heart or a brain? And another way to ask the question is, which one is better to go without? And Scarecrow says, I want the brain, because it's the brain that can tell you what to do with your heart. And Tin Man says, that's true, but all that aside, I'll take the heart, because it's the heart that makes us happy. And I think as Christians, Tin Man is right, with a little bit of a qualifier. We take the heart because it's in the heart that we can love and receive love. It's in our heart that we can love God and receive God's love. And that's the greatest joy. The reason why Monk has become my favorite show now of all time is because after that moment of feeling empty, where he thought that he'd finally be free from his grief, he discovers that his wife had a daughter that she didn't even know about. When she gave birth, she thought her daughter died in childbirth. But unbeknownst to her and to everyone else, she was adopted and she lived. And Monk discovers this. And he finds her. He arranges a meeting. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a TV show. And he goes to her. And he's sobbing, and he's emotional, and he hugs her. And then he breaks free for a moment, and he has the biggest smile, and then he hugs her again. And why I love this moment, because it impacted me profoundly when I saw it. Monk got a new heart that day. He was finally able to open his heart again and to love somebody. And he was finally able to give access to his heart to another person. He received a new heart, a restored heart, a healed one, a heart that now could experience love again. You know, Jesus came to give us a new heart, my friends. In the book of Exodus, we hear this promise from the Lord that he will eventually send someone, his son. And he says this, I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a new heart. Jesus wants to give us a new heart today. Brene Brown, you know that I love to listen to her stuff, and Brene Brown says this, that vulnerable hearts are hearts that allow people in. A vulnerable heart gives access to another. And I think what the Lord wants of us this weekend is this. He wants us to give access to our troubled hearts to him. So that when Jesus comes in to our hearts, he can heal that which is broken. He can restore in love that which is broken. He can heal that which is hurt. He can restore and love that which is broken. He can give hope to those who are grieving. And he can give encouragement to all of us who are troubled. Stay with me. Stay with me as I go to the cross, because the glory of the resurrection is coming. See, Jesus had to die first before the power of the resurrection, before God's power over death could be manifested. He says in our gospel today, unless a grain of wheat falls and dies, it remains a grain. But if it falls and dies, it prepares great fruit. Unless we give our hearts to another, we can't receive love. Unless we give our hearts totally to God, we can't receive that. But if we do, if we open our hearts to him and give our hearts to him, then we can receive that greatest joy that comes from our God who loves us. God knows we have troubled hearts. God knows your heart. And he is asking for access to it this weekend so that he can heal, restore, and give you hope. That the glory of the resurrection, the same grace that brought about our Savior, is the same grace that can give you hope and joy again.